Camping in the jungle had always held a certain allure for me, an irresistible call of the wild, a chance to escape the humdrum of city life, and the opportunity to connect with nature in its purest, most primal form. It was a dream I had nurtured for years, and finally the stars aligned, and I found myself on an adventurous journey to the heart of the Amazon rainforest. I had meticulously planned every detail of this expedition. My gear was top-notch, and I was accompanied by an experienced guide, Mikhail, who knew the jungle like the back of his hand. Along with me, there were 3 other members in our expedition. Anna, a botanist with an insatiable curiosity for rare plant species. Diego, a wildlife photographer with a passion for capturing elusive creatures on film. And Rosa, an anthropologist fascinated by the indigenous tribes that call the jungle their home. Our base camp was located deep within the dense Amazon rainforest, accessible only by a treacherous boat journey upriver, and then a grueling hike through the thick foliage. The journey to the camp was an adventure in itself, with the jungle looming ominously around us, its sounds and shadows conspiring to ignite our imaginations. Our first few days in the jungle were idyllic. We set up our campsite by the river, the tranquil waters offering a refreshing respite from the sweltering heat. Miguel taught us the basics of jungle survival, how to find edible plants, identify animal tracks, and navigate the winding trails. As the sun set each evening, we gathered around the campfire, sharing stories and basking in the glow of camaraderie. But on the 4th night, as we sat around the campfire, our merriment was interrupted by a strange, unsettling sound, a distant, mournful wailing that echoed through the jungle. We exchanged puzzled glances, our laughter fading as the eerie cries grew closer. Miguel's eyes widened with recognition. "That's the cry of that alma perdida," he muttered, his voice low and serious. "The lost soul?" Anna questioned, her brows furrowing. Miguel nodded. "A local legend, a vengeful spirit said to haunt the depths of the jungle, luring travelers to their doom." Diego scoffed. "Come on, Miguel, you don't actually believe in this stuff, do you?" Miguel's expression darkened. "I've heard the stories my whole life, and I've seen things in these woods that I can't explain. Whether you believe it or not, it's best to stay close to camp tonight." We reluctantly heeded his advice, retiring to our tents with a mixture of unease and skepticism. The jungle at night took on a life of its own. Strange rustlings, haunting calls, and the ever-present sense of being watched. As I lay in my tent, sleep eluding me, I couldn't help but wonder if there was any truth to Miguel's warning. Around midnight, I was startled awake by a faint, ghostly whisper that seemed to emanate from the very fabric of the tent. It was a voice, soft and beckoning, calling my name. "Sarah." I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. It couldn't be my imagination. Someone, or something, had just spoken my name. I cautiously unzipped my tent and peered outside, scanning the darkness with my flashlight. The camp was shrouded in silence, the others seemingly undisturbed. I considered waking them, but the rational part of me convinced me it was a dream, a trick of the jungle's nocturnal symphony. I returned to my tent, zipping it up tightly, and tried to convince myself that I had imagined the voice. But just as I was starting to drift back to sleep, I heard it again, louder and more insistent. "Sarah." This time, there was no denying it. The voice was real, and it was coming from outside the tent. My heart raced as I unzipped the flap once more, my flashlight's beam cutting through the inky darkness. There, standing at the edge of the campfire's glow, was a figure, a woman, her features obscured by disheveled hair and tattered clothing. Her skin was deathly pale, and her eyes were wide and vacant, like the eyes of a lost soul. I gasped, my breath catching in my throat. I could hear the others stirring in their tents, roused by my sudden alarm. The woman took a step closer, her gaze fixed on me, and I could see the anguish in her eyes. "Sarah, help me," she whispered, her voice trembling. Without thinking, I backed away, my fear overwhelming any instinct to help. The others emerged from their tents, their expressions a mix of confusion and concern. "What's going on?" Anna asked, her voice shaky. I pointed at the woman, but when we turned back to look, she was gone. vanished into the jungle, leaving behind only the echo of her voice. "Did you all see that?" I stammered. Diego shook his head. "I didn't see anything." Miguel's face was grave. "It must have been the alma perdida, the lost soul." Rosa, ever the rational thinker, suggested it might have been a member of a nearby indigenous tribe. Perhaps they need our help, or maybe they were simply curious about us. We spent the rest of the night on edge, the jungle's nocturnal sounds taking on an eerie and malevolent quality. None of us slept, and the memory of the mysterious woman haunted my thoughts. The following day, we decided to explore deeper into the jungle in search of answers. Miguel led the way, armed with his machete and a cautious determination. We followed a narrow trail that seemed to beckon us into the heart of the forest. As we ventured deeper, the jungle grew denser, the trees towering overhead and blocking out the sunlight. The air was thick with humidity, and the oppressive heat clung to our skin like a suffocating embrace. But we pressed on, driven by a shared sense of curiosity and unease. Hours passed, and we found ourselves in a clearing, a place untouched by human hands, a pristine oasis in the heart of the jungle. In the center of the clearing stood a stone altar, ancient and weathered, covered in intricate carvings that spoke of a forgotten civilization. Miguel approached the altar, his fingers tracing the carvings with reverence. "This is a sacred place," he said, his voice hushed. "The indigenous tribes believe it is a gateway to the spirit world, a place where the living and the dead can commune." As we studied the altar, a strange sensation washed over me, a feeling of being watched, of being observed by unseen eyes. I turned, my heart pounding, and that's when I saw her, the same woman from the previous night, standing at the edge of the clearing, her pale eyes fixed on us. "Sarah," she whispered, her voice filled with longing. I stepped closer, my heart aching with empathy. "Who are you? What do you want?" She gestured towards the altar, her expression filled with sorrow and urgency. "Help me." Miguel warned against getting too close, but my curiosity and compassion overrode my fear. I approached the altar, and as I did, the woman's form seemed to shimmer and blur, as if she were on the edge of existence itself. I reached out and touched the stone, and in that instant, a blinding light engulfed me. I felt myself being pulled into a vortex of sensations and emotions, a cacophony of voices, a torrent of memories, a surge of grief and despair. When the light finally receded, I found myself back in our campsite. My friends gathered around me, their faces etched with concern. Miguel helped me to my feet, his voice filled with relief. "You're back," he said, his eyes searching mine. "What happened?" I struggled to find words to describe the overwhelming experience I had just endured, the voices, the memories, the sense of being a conduit between the living and the dead. The others listened in silence, their expressions a mix of awe and unease. It was clear that we had stumbled upon something beyond our understanding, something ancient and otherworldly. As we made our way back to the base camp, I couldn't help but wonder about the woman and her plea for help. What had she been trying to convey, and why had she chosen me to bear witness to her pain? The mysteries of the jungle were vast and unfathomable, and I had unwittingly become a part of them. Our journey through the Amazon rainforest left us with more questions than answers, and the memory of that enigmatic woman would stay with me for the rest of my days. The jungle held secrets that defied explanation, and I had been granted a glimpse into a world where the boundaries between the living and the dead were blurred, where the ancient and the modern coexisted in haunting harmony.